architecture and city planning are very much a foundation element of the Aga Khan Trust for Culture, and it's His Highness's wish that this platform or this sector be energized or activated, we could say, to help to create a better awareness of our built environment, our physical built environment, as well as the heritage within it in these parts of the world, and then ultimately and very essentially to improve the quality of life of the communities. The Historic Cities program, as the name would suggest, is intended to address issues and projects which are not solely at an individual building scale, but at a wider scale. It could be city scale. We use the term cities, but very often we work at an intermediate scale, which is districts, sub-districts, etc. But it's the Historic Cities program was meant to, to sort of make a clear statement, I would say, to developers and to planners and local authorities that there is such a thing as historic cities. They're not exactly the same as modern cities. They have a lot in common with modern cities, but they are special. They're a unique subset, let's say. And if we look at the areas of historic cities in Asia, Africa, the Middle East, etc., particularly where we're active, historic cities are often still the very much the main population centers, if not the capitals for these countries. And they have grown, obviously, and evolved over centuries, and in some cases millennia. They're repositories of huge amount of wealth and assets, cultural assets. And they are also very, shall we say, stressed or challenged by their special dual role that they have to support a modern population. At the same time, they have to find a way to cope with maintaining an infrastructure and a building fabric that is very often very ancient and often in bad condition. Candidate projects or locations, in our case, within historic cities that are of great interest to us, and we see an opportunity to restore or conserve important built heritage, while at the same time assisting a community which is living adjacent to this heritage. So, in other words, we would not typically get involved with a project which is a remote archaeological site, or a cluster of buildings which is in a remote isolated zone, which doesn't have a community near it, because we always try to combine community redevelopment and support with heritage and conservation planning. So the two have to work very well together in the symbiosis. In addition to that, obviously, we need to have a harmonious rapport with the host country or host local authorities, which means we have to visit, we have to explain our past projects, we have to talk about the scope of the project, we have to define it spatially, because we don't take on projects which are open-ended or undefined in terms of scale. We need to know exactly what the boundary of the project is, so that we are clear of what the sort of commitment is that we make, and we can discuss certain proposed outcomes to the local authorities. We also, in addition to entering into a particular city or site or district, and I mentioned the issue of the community, the dimension of the community. We also talk about a catchment area. Now, catchment areas comes from sort of urban geography and all sorts of other disciplines. But in our case, we use the term catchment area to say that if we proceed to go into a project within a certain boundary, that we have an outer boundary. We have a catchment area where we have so many people living, and typically it's somewhere between 20,000 to 100,000 people living. And that we see that catchment area as the primary beneficiaries of the project. And why do we say that? It's because they will be the ones in normal daily contact. And as you can imagine it anywhere in the world, it's not just a historic city, a modern city too. The surrounding area will have the most stake, let's say, because they're going to be walking through, they're going to be having contact, and many of these people will be eventually possibly finding employment in some of the facilities or projects that we create as part of this project. The Dabal Ahmar Cairo Area Development Project, which started with the proposed gift by His Highness of building a public park in the center of Cairo, basically in adjacent to the former Fatimid city and the World Heritage Site of Cairo, Islamic Cairo, and he picked out of 3 possible sites of different sizes. He picked the largest and the one which had the toughest terrain conditions. It was a very hilly site with a lot of inorganic debris, a site used for tipping of building debris, etc., over the years, and which was sandwiched between the Ayyubid historic wall and the main road which leads to the airport, Salah Salam Road, and the City of the Dead, a very complex area. It was a barren site with very unstable soils, and we knew we had to immediately stabilize the soils, do a lot of cut and fill, cart off the inappropriate materials, and establish a site nursery. While we were doing all of that, we were also scouting around the old city and the Dabal Ahmar community. The park is divided from the Dabal Ahmar community by the Ayyubid wall, which was mostly buried, but you could see the turrets at the top and some towers. So we had to start to excavate the historic wall. Eventually, the historic wall became a project by itself, which took almost 10 years to uncover, to clean, rehabilitate, repair where we had to, and to make presentable. The park was not only created to provide a wonderful green space and landscaping and facilities for the general population of Cairo. And by the way, it attracts 12% of the metropolitan area's population. Very much local residents, so it's not a touristic-y park for foreigners. Primarily, it's for the local residents of Cairo. But in addition to those objectives, the park was meant to be a catalyst. And that is often the case with our area development projects. We have an anchor project, which is supposed to revitalize and energize an area, and to illustrate to the private sector that, look, there are opportunities around here if you just put the dots together. In the community side, Dabal Ahmar, we had always intended the park to continue to provide benefits, and in fact the Al Azhar Park management team and entity was planned so that it would generate surpluses, operating surpluses. And under an agreement we had with the Cairo Governorate, it was agreed that these surpluses would, which are obviously retained on site because this is a non-profit project, would be plowed back into the community, Dabal Ahmar community, primarily. And so on a given year, since it was completed, something to the tune of $150,000 to $200,000 has been recycled back into the community. And in order to make that happen, we created a Dabal Ahmar development company, and it's been working since the park was completed, and is still there today. And they still continue to run a carpentry workshop. They are supervising vocational training programs. They They commission and they support individuals who make handicraft products, which are they help to sell, export to other places, and so on and so forth. Housing is a very special category of urban redevelopment because it can be costly and because you often need to have participation by residents. And even there, we were able to find a way to blend some outside funding with owner finance and sweat equity, as it's sometimes called, to bring about these changes. So the project, or I should say the initiative in Dabal Ahmar really hasn't ended. It's still going on as we speak. And this will be the same case, and is the same case in parts of Kabul, where we finished 2 or 3 parks, which are of very high standard as well. It's the case in northern Pakistan, where we created guest houses, luxurious or very wonderful heritage guest houses out of heritage buildings and forts. It is the case in Delhi with Humayun's tomb, etc. It's become a model, let's say, for redevelopment, urban redevelopment, where you, at the end of the day, for every dollar, let's say, to be very economical in terminology, every dollar invested, you can actually generate multiplier effects and more benefits to the community. Yeah. Cultural heritage has become an engine for redevelopment, and this is not surprising. But I think the question is, or the point is, that if you structure it properly, if you set up the right project framework, you can really achieve more and much more than if you just treat it as a purely architectural conservation project. And that sort of work used to happen in the 60s and 70s, et cetera, 80s. Excellent work. They've saved many important monuments around the world. But what we're talking about here is cultural heritage as an engine, a motor for redevelopment. And for that, you've got to be more inclusive in terms of what you look at, and you've got to take into account the community living around it. And of course, you've got to do baseline surveys. You've got to know what the community's needs are, the gaps they have, so you can work with them. We're living in a world with a lot of, shall we say, geopolitical tensions and competing systems of economic production, everything else, and there's often misunderstanding or confusion between different communities and cultures. And I think His Highness Aga Khan has been very proactive in stressing pluralism as a critical element of development. Pluralism meaning not just tolerance of other cultures and ethnic groups, but also a dynamic method of learning about them, reaching out to understand them. All people are caring human beings, and they have identities, and you, of course, this is an ancient concept which goes back to the ancient Greeks and earlier. But there is this issue of personal self-worth and self-respect. Anything we do, if we don't increase self-respect as this notion of self-esteem, both on an individual level, family level, household level, and community, then we may have achieved something interesting from an economic and physical point of view, but we may not have gone as far as we could have. And I think that that's the critical challenge to us, is to protect all the citizens and give them a sense of pride in their culture and in themselves.